Right at the
So that you
They did that.
sure.
That's how it
You'll be coming out to go swing.
Oh, okay, so when you come back around, I
You know, take your friends.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It would be a nightmare dealing. I can't get out there.
How would you get in?
Well, no, but I mean, everybody trying to get out.
So what I think it was meant to summer.
I don't think I
That one area over the right between there and just coming down garage, and they made a little gravel park. Cover all the new grass.
Well, it's like if they were to channel, everything down, you got the same.
I put the sign-in sheet in the back.
Kevin, sign in, please.
Yeah, I think yesterday, stayed overnight, shopping this morning.
My side has to over my head. The one where he came over and he put the driveway back out, he couldn't see it. All of a sudden, the next day, they had a backhoe. Don't push it up, because that's how you drive. Yeah, I still drive up.
Tell her to take her head out of that. I begged to go. We're gonna talk about equal rights. Yeah, we did have a lot of snow. Yeah, we had all that snow. It was so cold. I was taking them out there.
My wife wants their shit. His wife thinks she's 120 pounds. Okay? And at the time, you know, I can't be out there in that snow. My wife should why am I getting stuck on the snow? It's got a guy coming in.
It's gonna be the first time you've ever actually used it.
I said that yes, we did it for one time. Or a small 6 okay? And then, I still put it in. You still call it senior law. That's what we should use. Pick one for the main roads and parking lots. And that's why my road is saw when I saw it. Snowplow road. It dropped. Yeah. It was when snowplow road. So the big. Because it was full of sand and snow.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on the. I saw that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Hi there. Thanks for coming. I was just on your door and asking for coming down. I'm meeting you.
I know.
Figured you would recognize me if I was outside, if I wasn't in my yard.
Oh, I reckon. You know, it's not where I am, because you can tell a lot about anywhere.
This is Tina, our other neighbor. She lives on the other
Oh,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of naughty.
Whatever way to go.
Mind you, and then I was like,
Yeah, right.
so I'm always paranoid if I
If you don't see my car there, you know I'm not there. Because she never drives my car. Yeah. She works tonight. She works tonight, then she's got the weekend. She has to work every other weekend. Anyway, yeah, well, that's good to know that. Thanks. They're planning on milling and filling our road next week. Now, I don't know if you know what that means, but they're gonna grind the top down, they're gonna bring it down, and then they're gonna repave it. It's gonna be down a little bit, yeah.
He says two, I say one.
Because I told them the reason that I put that in there, but, well, they call it a berm, look at the street, in my driveway, was because when they first paved it, I said, oh, I was coming down the hill, right down my driveway, right in my backyard.
happens right to my front, it's worn out our way too.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I did was, you know how I had to leave it on so you always try to redirect the water too.
First of all, I used to work at the okay. You guys ever, they did that road, that's back. You look at the contour of the land, okay, we're on the downhill side. Where are the drains? We're on the uphill side. Where do you put a drain on the uphill side? You know, the guy that did my house had a drain going uphill, and it had to be replaced. Okay? Same idea. Drain means, you know, downhill. Okay? So we put drain in, because on the downhill side,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna move that or not. I'm gonna do it again. I can run it. But they are, I'm gonna backside.
Yeah, so maybe,
The downhill side of the road, I believe it's like our level. So as you're eating towards the range rather than towards our houses.
Like we've done before, depends on the size too, you know.
Once you get into the ground, like outside my property, you know what's happening? It's the rock. I've got to notify them going out, so we're looking at like once or twice a day.
how are you? Terrific. Good. How are you? It's been a long time since I've seen you. Hi,
That kind of cut is the rest of the highway. And budget. Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, he's on. That's his replacement.
They're 11 by 17 is good. And if they're an odd size, I have to format it. I'm trying to format it. Bring it down, change the tracking, and all that. Most of my stuff is designed for either 8.5 or 11.
I'm one of those people that I get to be well known quickly.
Except for those separate.
Oh, John, you want something?
I'm not sure of anything. I just look my mind.
When was this built?
And I make sure people know what it is.
Yeah.
That's why if you notice, that's why, I don't know if you noticed last year.
Yeah, it was
That's
dedicated.
when it was winter before, and if you want to clear all the snow off, backhoe. That was just me. I felt that as a community.
I had somewhere else.
Hey, asshole.
Are you available tomorrow night?
That's gonna be your mom.
Well, can you listen to here?
I don't have to put up with that. Okay. I want to so removed. I can't see get out my driveway. It's dangerous. It's got to be taken out. There's no reason for that.
Yeah, that's what my son is saying.
I said, look, my wife, I'm 220 pounds. Okay? And we're out there shoveling the snow on the snowbank, shoveling up my eyeballs, and the guy across the street has a guy coming in plowing, he's got a snowbank that's 2 foot high. Someone's gonna hit me. Okay?
May I have everyone's attention? Thank you all for coming out. I'm Pat Constantino. In case you don't know who's who, it's John Scanlon, Catherine Dawson, Joe Jessamine, Peter Fogg, Johnny Van Tassel, our new highway director, Chief, everyone knows Chief, and Gail Bestick, our administrative assistant. We asked everyone to come out tonight to give us your input on our village streets. We have, over the last few years, we've had residents come and say to us, particularly Daniel Drive, Academy Street, the traffic, it's not safe, the children are unsafe. Speed bumps worked in those areas. Cedar Street residents came to us almost a year and a half ago and asked us for speed bumps. We looked into it, we looked into the alternatives. I can say that we beefed up patrols, Chief did, and it's been fairly successful. We haven't got back to the residents on Cedar Street, and then other issues started to come up, and we need your input. As you know, the village streets are very narrow, parking is very limited, so what do? You know, a lot of people have a lot of different ideas to do different things, and we want to hear from you folks, what you feel that the idea. We have an issue on Chestnut Street, two-way parking, people parking on the painted sidewalk. There's no passageway for people that want to walk, or babies with carriages going on the sidewalk on High Street. There's a partial parking on the top, and if they park outside of the line, not within the sidewalk, then people from Cedar Street onto High Street can't really make that turn if another car is coming up at the same time. Those are just some of the issues that were coming up. You folks live here, as do I in the village, so we want to hear from you. One thing before we begin and open it up to the public, our trash pickup, the east side had little or no problems understanding our postcard that we sent out, but there is a huge problem on the west side today with trash pickup. A lot of people put their trash out without the purple bags, and today actually was the last day that you had to use the purple bags. We've asked Johnny to have an extra dumpster available on Saturday, so that will be available to all of you to take the trash there on Saturday from 9 to 1, just so that you have that information, okay? And next week, no purple bags. They're done.
Just to clarify that now, like I said, that's in addition to regular trash pickup? Are we still gonna have trash pickup?
Next week, you have trash pickup with no purple bags.
Okay, just wanna make sure of that.
Yeah, you can wait till
You
next
said
week.
something about having a
if you want.
dumpster, and I was like, well, does that mean we're gonna have to bring it? No.
If you want to bring your trash and get rid of it this week, you need to bring it to the dump on Saturday.
Okay.
Okay?
Can the purple bags still be used until they're gone?
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
A bag's a bag, it's just.
Any kind of bag. Any kind of bag.
Halloween costume, right?
Yep. Scott, go ahead.
Pat, I think that maybe the selectmen ought to send that out. I think we have that robocall and everything.
The alert, Tilton.
And, yeah, maybe you ought to send that out and let the residents know that they have that option.
That's a good idea. Okay, the way I'm gonna open it up, if you have an idea or a suggestion for us or a comment that you wanna make, please speak loud, your name, where you live, and, you know, what your comment is so that we can record all the comments and then go back and try to resolve the issues. Go ahead.
Well, I have a couple of different ideas. First on the speeding.
Your name and where you live.
Ron Allen, and I'm on 8 West Street. First of all, on the speeding part of it, I have found people have a tendency to slow down when you put up signs that says children at play slow. We've asked, I know on West Street several times to have those put up, and they've never been put up. I think if we put them up in the neighborhood streets here, it might have a tendency to slow people down. Because people think about children, they don't think about, when you know, other things, but they do think about children. Because most of us are parents or grandparents, and we want our children protected. So that's one idea about the speeding that might help. As far as the parking goes, I think on any of these streets should be parking on one side only. And on that side, if there's a sidewalk, if they park over the line on the sidewalk, chief, you can instruct your guys, you give them a parking ticket. And when they have to pay a parking ticket, and they don't pay it, and they lose their license registration, they'll win the one. There's no reason why you can't park on this side of the line. You do it in parking lots all the time.
One comment.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of,
Name.
I'm Jamie DeLacio, 6 West Street, and one thing that I'll piggyback off on the sidewalk piece, because I do tend to walk a lot down Chestnut Street, and sometimes with my granddaughters on their bicycles, and on occasion they do have to go around the car in the road, which is a bit unsafe, but I don't know if there's kind of a happy medium, because in some areas it is a pretty big sidewalk space. So I don't know if it's possible to pull in maybe a more narrow sidewalk space to maybe give a little more real estate to the traffic and still allow some of the tenants or homeowners. I know we have a driveway, but sometimes we'll park in front of the house for bringing in groceries, or you're washing one car, or
Yep.
washing down the driveway. So, you know, maybe that's an option, a happy medium to still offer a sidewalk, but it doesn't have to be for 4 people walking together. Just a piggyback comment on that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Ann Glidden, or Bessie Glidden, 39 Chestnut Street. I'm probably one of the originals that live on the street besides Doug here. I grew up in this neighborhood many, many years, and the streets have always been problematic, always, because of the church. When the church had a lot of parishioners going to it every Saturday and Sunday, that whole line was always filled up. And it's been a way of life forever, basically. Over the years, since the church has declined in their churchgoers there, what I have been observing is basically the people that are living in apartments, they're the ones that are parking on the side of the road. They have assigned parking areas, but they do not like to walk. So they park in front of the buildings. And I can see parking in front of the buildings for maybe 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes you to get your laundry out of the car, your groceries out of the car, and maybe put your kid in the car. But aside from that, there's no reason for them to be parking there. None whatsoever. And if you make it a one-way road, you're just going to cause problems on the rest of the roads. I mean, even Prospect has its problem because they're parking on their sides as well. There is no easy answer for any of these areas, but that's, I feel basically is that the street needs to be a two-way, and I think people need to address from where they live. If they live in an apartment building, park your car in that parking area that you're assigned to, not on the side of the street unless you have business that I just mentioned. And basically, you put up the signs that say no parking except for 15, 20 minutes, whatever that may be. And as far as speeding, I live on the corner of High and Chestnut, so I get it all.
Yeah.
And basically, it's the kids that are coming through from high school. They don't, I mean, the town has grown over the years. There's more cars in the roads now than there ever has been. And when they get out of school, instead of getting out front on the main street, they come out the back way, up Winter Street, and then onto Cedar, and then down High Street. Well, that's all fine and good, but as we know, kids like to speed. I'm no exception, I did the same thing when I was a kid. And at this point, speed bumps are great because they do slow you down. But on the other side, I think, again, if you put a sign up that's saying, not a through street from this time until this time, I think that, and of course have the police officers actually enforce that. And I'm all for parking tickets. I'm sorry.
Okay, the gentleman in the brown t-shirt.
Eric Usinger, 9 Linden. My point is, if everything is coming down to the fact of what's going on Chestnut in that first maybe 2 blocks, and every apartment building is supposed to have off-street parking, and I do agree with, you have groceries and it's 2 seconds unloading. Why are we allowing parking on it at all? If it is just for the renters who you see the rental apartments, you're talking about someone in the vicinity of staying here a year. And you're saying that they might inconvenience someone who has actually laid stakes here, invested in this town, in an apartment, property, and have laid stakes for maybe a decade plus. I don't understand why we're even contemplating that if they have parking, why are they on the street? I just don't, it doesn't make sense. And if that's the issue with emergency vehicles, sometimes people park on both sides, and then you're looking at a very skinny spot to get through, and I don't imagine a Hummer truck would get through that. Why are we even saying we're dealing with this? And no parking on the streets. Every landlord has to have off-street parking, and just make it so.
Please.
I'm Tina DiGiorgio, 4 West Street.
Speak up, please.
Tina DiGiorgio, 4 West Street. I agree that I don't think that we should make Chestnut Street a one-way because there's several families with small children on West Street, and I think that it's a very quiet street right now, but I think if Chestnut becomes a one-way either way, it's going to cause a lot of traffic on that street and it will be unsafe.
Kevin?
Thank you. Kevin LaChapelle, 57 Chestnut Street. First of all, thank you for having a public forum like this. I think it's great to have the neighborhood together to hear everyone's opinions. Instead of, you could have most certainly just said, this is the way it's going to be and we don't want your opinion. So thank you for having this public forum. The next piece is, last October we met at Town Hall for this same type of a discussion. And it was suggested after hearing the same comments that we've heard tonight. Because if you push down, it's like whack-a-mole. You push down on this one, it's going to pop up over here with other problems. So with that said, it was suggested that you consult with a traffic engineer that works with problematic areas everywhere. That's their job. So I'm curious to know how you made out with the traffic engineer when it was suggested in October.
We haven't done anything with any of the suggestions that were done in October, except to have another public hearing. There have been much discussions on a lot of things that there are 5 selectmen and we have 5 different opinions. So, but it is an excellent suggestion.
I think it would solve a lot of, they know their business. And I just think it may alleviate a lot of pain.
Go ahead.
Pat, are all the town streets here in the village district, are they all the same width?
No, they're not. Chestnut, I believe, is the most narrow. Cedar is wider. High is a little bit wider than Chestnut. West is narrow.
They're horse and buggy roads.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's basically it, yeah.
And there's a lot of cities, I mean, where I grew up, all the roads were kind of like that, and even if I go down to Concord or something like that, the bulk of the roads are kind of narrow. So I think we're just kind of pushing or entering some new territories with, how do we keep the same look and feel and traffic flow without going to that whole, everything is a one-way, like if you try to go somewhere in Concord, you can go down this one, but you can't go down that one, or you can, so I think it's advantageous to avoid that, but try to find other solutions.
Yeah,
Follow up.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, if they're not all the same, then I agree with Kevin, maybe we ought to have a professional look at it, and then they know the sides of the width of roads that you need to have a certain amount of traffic to be able to pass through. Whether it's, whether you have parking on the street or not, or whether you have two-way traffic, or so on and so forth. I mean, none of us are professionals with that. As Kevin said, I mean, you could sit here and come up with probably 9 different alternatives, and maybe not one of them would solve any of the problems that we currently are faced with. So I think that would probably be where the roads are all different width. Have someone professional look at that and say, okay, on say Cedar Street, just for instance, or Chestnut Street, you only have the width to have this amount of traffic, whether it's two-way traffic with no parking or so on and so forth, or maybe it won't accommodate parking and also have the sidewalk there, also the painted sidewalk. I think that is a good start to try to come up with some solutions to what the problems are in the village district.
Billy?
Bill Lawrence, 56 Chestnut. I think that's a great idea. Any studies on the paper. I was just curious. Now, is the main problem is when school lets out for one part of it, and then the other part is the church population? What are the biggest?
No, it's the apartment goers.
Oh, so it's parking on the
He
street.
says the accident.
I don't think that it's necessarily the apartment goers either. It's, if you live on High Street, for instance, the small section up here where the bridge is, and you have your own driveway, and there's 2 cars in the driveway, and you have somebody over for Sunday dinner, there's no place to park. And if that happens, they're not apartment dwellers, and that happens, the road is so tiny. But now you have to go and maneuver around them. If another car is coming this way, you have to stop and maneuver around them because the road is so thin. The same way, I think, is happening here at Chestnut, particularly from the church up to High Street, that happens as well. So the issues are that they can't walk on their painted walkway because cars are parked there to get off the road, and then if we ask them not to be parked on the road, then in the painted sideway, if we ask them not to be in the painted sidewalk, then they're in the road, so it becomes an issue. The school traffic comes down Winter across Cedar and then over High Street.
I think you could deal with the school traffic pretty easy by diverting it with a policeman at Route 3, and just have them all go out one way. But
one of the issues that the chief had suggested when the Cedar Street residents came to us was that perhaps maybe having a no-through street during the hours of 2 to 5, I think it was. For Cedar Street.
Yeah, and the 5 o'clock isn't good, because sometimes I like to go that way if traffic is all backed up this way and I'm trying to get home, or something around where you're getting all that congestion on Main Street around 5 o'clock. But I think if the high school didn't travel or go, I mean, that's part of the problem. They're the ones that speed. I'm used to the church getting out. I'm used to the church traffic. I know I can wave to them at what time on Sunday when they're going by. I mean, they're not really the people that are speeding, or it's just temporary.
The same time the high school gets out, the shift changes at the veterans home too. So it's not just the high school or the middle school. It's not just the high school.
It's staff, it's
Right.
veterans home, yeah.
Yeah.
And other people taking turning.
And the chief did, the chief last year arranged for the light to be shorter going this way so that they can get through Main Street quicker. That did happen last year. So that did make a significant difference, but not quite enough. Anyone, go ahead, right in the back.
Sharon Smith from Spruce Street. Do we have any statistics on age for the ones that have been stopped? Cedar Street, Spruce Street area? Is it just high school? Because I'm not seeing just high school people.
Sergeant Morrison behind you handles all the director patrols and speed enforcement over there. So I'm going to defer that question to him if it's okay.
Since I was promoted,
How long?
and having the officers do a directed patrol from 2 p.m. till 3 p.m. We're out there with laser. We're not only on Cedar. Winter Street has it. My street, Peabody Street, has it. I have clocked people doing 50 on Peabody Street.
Wow.
So it's not just a certain street issue. It's an overall issue that's caused by the traffic issue at Main Street and Prospect Street.
Is it mostly the teenagers, high school?
No, it's actually, it's a mixing pot. A lot of the speeders that we get are teenagers. Because we've been, really enforcing the speed limit. We have a new LiDAR, it's a laser tracking system. It's very accurate, and we can pinpoint every car that comes down through, and we show people the speed. Most of the speeders are between the ages of 21 and 39.
Because we're all trying to beat that one red light.
And so what it is, just like Pat said, you have a vast majority of different walks of life. You've got the student traffic, the teachers, you've got the veterans home, nurses. Not only do you have that, but you've got Watts regulator people. There's a lot of people that come through this area to work down the Franklin Industrial Park. So you've got all that coming together at that one particular time. And the reason why they're cutting through like that is, as we have all experienced here, the backup from the Main Street light. There's no easy solution for it. We do what we can on the police department. Obviously, we don't have 100 officers, so it's kind of a shell game where I'm trying to deploy, what I have for staff to meet the expected problems, but we also have problems in the exit 20 area. We also have problems up in, the Winter region, because you've also got traffic coming down through there. So we get a lot of traffic-related problems at the same time of day. So, we do try to keep a big visibility in this area when we can. And the vast majority of the time we can do that, but there are times when we can't, staff that much.
I've noticed a significant decrease.
Yeah, it is working.
It is working, absolutely. The other thing I want to mention is the one-way street ideas. It's going to inconvenience everyone that lives in the area. So perhaps that traffic engineer thing could be really looked into. Spruce Street has no stop signs on either end. And
Or west. You can just go down, there's no stop sign. I tell my mother, she still has to
here's
stop.
food for thought. Years and years ago, they would race down Cedar Street, and one would go to Spruce Street
The school kids.
to see if they can
Because they
always the other
There's
one.
no stop sign on Spruce Street, so you don't have to stop at that stop sign where usually the officer was sitting across the street with a radar, and then you put a nice 20-mile-an-hour sign, brand new right there. I'm just gonna say I'm one of those speeders. I cut that street because I got rear-ended and got my car totaled right there at that light, not even 6 months ago, so. Yeah, it's not really gonna change anything, because if you go down this road, you don't get out at that stop sign anyway because there's traffic and no one lets you out.
Go ahead.
That's all.
Chris Gill, 62 Chestnut Street. Up in Shea Industrial Park in Laconia, at 3:30, all the factories seemed to get out at once, and a lot of folks were doing were going away from 106 to the back roads and out. So at the town put up a sign, a no entry sign at the back end of Lexington Drive. So all the traffic had to go out to 106 because they were having a lot of problems with everyone racing down West Shore Drive and so forth to get to the middle of town. But it's only from 3 to 4 in the afternoon when it was a problem. So there, you can post selective one-way signs in areas just to siphon the traffic the way you want it to go. You could do that up in High Street between the hours of, 3 and 4, just to keep the school traffic from. So you don't have to have one-way streets all the time, just during those hours, as someone else mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Either one way or no through traffic or something, yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, John, here for Chestnut Street. I'm the first house on Chestnut, and it's very narrow down there. Church parking makes it a one-way street, basically, unless you wait for the car to pass. But I think if it were one-way going up Chestnut, that would feed a lot of traffic up into the other streets, High Street, Cedar Street. So I don't think that's the answer. Likewise, if you were to make Cedar a one-way or Chestnut one-way in the opposite direction, that would throw a lot of weight and a lot of problems right in front of my house where Academy and Chestnut meet. So I don't think the answer to the question is going to be one way either way on Chestnut Street. I would much prefer eliminating parking altogether on Chestnut than going one-way street.
Scott?
Just a point, the light downtown has been, I know the selectmen don't have, the town doesn't have any control, it's a state light, but it's a delayed green going towards Franklin, or an early green going towards Franklin now. Is the time that the light is green going west the same amount of time at that light?
No, it's shorter, right?
It's shorter because I think that's backing up traffic even more in the afternoons than what we used to have for time. And I can't remember the officer, but the other day I was down there at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon.
Going west, the green is longer. Going east, it's shorter, right?
I can, Scott, I can tell you, I met the engineer down there a couple months ago. We checked the times. He added 15 seconds to east and west, and to try and help, which is as high as he could take it without more authority over his head. He said, Chief, this is as much time as I can give East and West Main. So he did add 15 seconds. I heard it helped a little bit. He did take some of that time away from Park.
Yeah, because that's the issue now, because I was sitting there behind an officer the other day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Prospect Street, trying to go left towards Laconia at the light. There was 4 cars, and we were all trying to go left. We set through 3 lights and couldn't get out. And finally, the officer turned around the old post office, and I looked at him, and I said, this is really nice right here. And he said, it's the state. And, you know, so you couldn't make the turn. There was somebody going straight. If they come straight, you can't turn into them, of course, but they were coming off going to Laconia, and they were backed up on the bridge going down Park Street. And they never cleared out, Pat. So that's why I was wondering if the times have changed to let them have less time now, because it seemed like you weren't at the light very long, and it went from green back to red fairly quick.
And Scott, you're saying coming off of...
I'm coming off in Prospect Street.
Yeah, so because when he looked at it westbound in the afternoon, it was at 30 seconds, and he tried to add, he took 5 from Park and added 10, which gave us, he added 15 seconds basically eastbound in the afternoon to try and relieve some of the traffic that's coming through the back streets. So we took westbound from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. And so that's where it's at right now. I can bring these suggestions back to them and see what else we can do. The system that's there is programmable, so they can make it do different things at different times. And that's why we're having this too, so I could hear some of those suggestions.
Why did he even take 5 seconds off the other one?
He said he had to. He couldn't.
Because it's a cycle?
Yeah, the way he explained it to me, to add 15, he had to take 5. And so, and he's an engineer, so I can't answer exactly why he had to do it. But what he was trying to do was alleviate this problem in the back streets. And certainly we can ask him to put it back if we need to. But, you know, that's what we're hearing tonight is I'll bring this back to them and the board's listening to. So.
What about having a light that lets you go either left or right from Park Street and Prospect?
Arrows, you mean?
Yeah, for those people that run those roads, that they have.
You don't have the room to create another lane. You have to have another lane for that and then back the car into it.
Okay, go ahead, then way in the back there, standing up.
Mark Yankowski, High Street. I've lived here for about 30 years. I've put a lot of works on the neighborhood over the years. You know, to me, the root of the problem, I think, is correct. It's just the downtown getting through the light that I experience a lot of rush hour traffic speeding through. So to me, you know, adding speed bumps, four-way stop street, stoplight, stop signs, I think take care of some of that. I don't mind cars being parked on the side. It slows everything down naturally. You know, and you know, to me, what I'm troubled is, but the light. Anytime there's a pedestrian, they push the light, it automatically slows everything down an additional 20, 30 seconds. And why not just have them react to the normal light pattern? You know, that naturally pushes all the traffic back and forth.
Another problem, and this I was going to bring up to the chief to address with DOT, a lot of people that are on the Park Street Bridge, they don't pull up far enough to trip the pressure plate.
Right.
So they need to either post a sign or they need to move it back some, because that's what causes a lot of traffic tie-up right there, is when people don't pull up far enough, it screws that whole synchronicity of the light up.
Right.
And that's where you get that overabundance of traffic trying to get off the bridge, causing other issues. So that's one of the small problems I think we can effectively take care of.
So that light too, I've seen, or I know, if I see cars backed up at the bottom of Prospect Street, I say, nope, I'll go down Academy Street and then pull out on the Rotary. So, and now I'm finding, you know, you might have to wait 3 or 4 cars down by the town hall onto School Street to pull out. So all we're doing is just kind of, with the light, moving the problem to a slightly other traffic. So if the light's too long, there's too many cars, you know you're gonna sit there, all the residents will go down Academy, pull out onto School, and then you have kind of a little jam there. Just my observation and my pattern.
Way up in the back.
Hi, I'm Jay Woodward. I live right over there on 6th Chestnut, right next to the church.
We didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Jay Woodward. I live right on 6th Chestnut Street, right next to the church, right across from the parking lot. Now, usually the light is the best option, because when I get out, I always go up to Academy, then turn right, so that we're pulling out from traffic. It's much more convenient. I know that there's issues with the lights, but yeah, I've had that problem coming west and waiting for lights and waiting for people backed up too. The left, you know what I'm saying, that left lane, or we want to turn left, heading west. That does create some backup. And sometimes I see people after even after the lights have changed, they're already in the process of wanting to turn, and they still do it. I notice that even when I'm heading north on 132 in the morning. Do you know what I'm talking about? With regards to the downtown, the intersection with the school, I don't hope this isn't too far off. She was just talking about the Rotary there. Has it ever been approached to the state about possibly making that intersection, that forward, into a regular modern-day roundabout? Because that seems to be that.
Whoa! Don't shoot the messenger.
No.
I think we're getting a little bit off topic because it's not in the little village streets, but we're getting way off downtown.
Sorry.
Trust me, the state has addressed that with us many, many times, and.
We don't need another roundabout. No.
Okay, Eric, you haven't. Go ahead.
Eric Pyre, 37 Cedar Street. I've approached the selectmen years ago about that, and at one time it was discussed to make Cedar Street a one-way in the afternoon, but the people that own the garage building, which I think that was the time of Daniel Wells, his concern was at the end of the day, but they're not there anymore. So, you know, if you make that one way from Winter Street, you know, from the hours of 2 to 4 or 2 to 5, Monday through Friday, it's going to alleviate a lot of the traffic. Or put a stop sign at the corner of Cedar and Spruce, to add one more stop sign just to slow the people down. It's the big thing. You know, and if you take Chestnut Street and make it one way going up to High Street, and it guide people to the light. That's what the light is there for, to control the traffic. Just last night, I did sit on the Park Street side, and I watched the eastbound traffic change 3 times because the person in front of me didn't pull up front. So I pulled over and I went to the right lane and the light changed. But maybe the state can put, they're using those camera type things now on top of the lights instead of the pressure plates. Maybe the state can investigate putting one of those there, because it does seem to be one of the triggers for traffic backing up where people are not pulling up enough.
Good suggestion. Go ahead, Don.
These are all on time, that's right.
Yes.
Park Street and Prospect Street, identical, they go off at the same time.
Yes.
So you need, Prospect Street needs maybe 5 seconds. You only get about 3 or 4 cars trying to get out of there. You get 15 coming across from getting out of West Street, coming up 93. And they're trying to come out, they're gonna go Franklin, most of them. And you can't get across. If you wanna go down Back Street, you gotta wait, and they won't let you cross. They're bumping them up.
They can time them separately.
Yeah, it'll be just a little bit, just so they get a head start coming off Prospect Street. Maybe 3 to 5 seconds. Just a little jump on it, because otherwise you don't, you get backed up there and you can't get out.
Thank you. Don.
Yeah, for Chestnut Street again. The traffic backing up is obviously the big problem, which is causing the overflow down Cedar Street. But the traffic is really huge lately, and I think that possibly, you know, I realize it's been surveyed and the right-hand turn lane is too narrow, but could we possibly have it temporarily open during 2 to 5, for instance, with maybe a police officer there directing traffic?
I hear what you're saying, and I really want to keep the discussion to the Cedar Street, High Street, Chestnut area. The chief has heard the concern on the lights, and that is a backup, I agree. Nate, you'll run with that as well, with the lights and the backup and looking at options? And
Well,
then we
I can answer the question about the right turn lane.
Okay.
That's been answered by the state engineers years ago to me, because I inquired on it. The reason why there is no right turn lane there is because it's not a positive barrier that comes down across the road, because the railroad track goes across that intersection. That's why you can't have a right turn lane. So unless the state wants to invest in putting a positive arm that comes down to block traffic from making the right turn when the train's coming, that's not going to be realized. So it's convincing the state to invest the money in order to change the problem.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay, Father.
Hi, Father Gagnon, the pastor over here at St. Gabriel now. I guess we'll change our name every week just to keep the bill collectors away. But anyways, I do agree with the lady over there that maybe narrowing the sidewalk would be a positive step. And maybe I realized that I was afraid that the church would be the bad one in this. I was thinking, you know, we use the property basically 4 hours a week, 2 hours on Saturday night and 2 hours on Sunday morning. And effectively speaking, and the rest of it, the parking lot is open for people during daylight hours. We don't want any vandalism or other stuff at night. And so, though it's trying to be a good neighbor, and I'm thinking that the question of one-way street got me here, because if someone were to make Chestnut Street one-way starting in Maine, it would be a nightmare. If you're worried about your cars going through the back streets, back over toward Winter, I mean, here we go, because people going to Franklin, they're not going to turn right when they get off of Chestnut. They're going left. They're not going to go away from home. They're going toward home. And the corner of Winter Street does not lend itself to a right-hand turn, not very well. So you just compound the problem and push it down the road and make it a lot worse. So I'm thinking that, you know, if it had to become a one-way, I would suggest maybe no parking all the way until the end of this driveway here, the Boutin parking driveway, and you know, make that two-way, and if the one-way would start in front of the rectory there, in front of the church, whatever, that might be palatable and might be workable, but if the cars coming out of here have to go that direction, I think it's a nightmare. And I hope, that's the reason I came, basically, to say, let us get back out that way so that it doesn't destroy the rest of the neighborhood. And as far as the parking, I've noticed that the first few houses over here seem to have good parking areas for their tenants or whatever else, you know, but when it gets beyond, it gets a little harder, but at least there, so, you know, I think that wouldn't be a hardship. So anyway, so I don't know, that's my opinion and for what it's worth.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
John Bruno, 127 Sherwood Drive. Going along with what Father had to say, Tuesday night we had confirmation here and there was 170, 180 people. I don't know what that translates into vehicles, but you're talking probably 80 vehicles. And if that was one way, if they had to come out of here, take a left, and I know West Street couldn't handle it, and it's not built for it either. And I don't think the people on High Street would care for that, or even, you know, if you had this all the time, and then if they had to go right and go down the end of Prospect where they got a stop sign, you're gonna have these guys busy writing up for accident reports for people being rear-ended. And then they got the problem with the light trying to get out of there once they get to Main. So I'm just saying this, for those, if you were thinking in terms of going one way from Main Street up, I would have to agree with Father that if it started here at the church and went up, a lot of that traffic goes up West Street and High Street anyway. But I don't think they want to see a parade of 60 to 100 cars going flying by, especially if they got kids out in the road.
Well, if you're talking what this gentleman is saying, that the one-way starts right after the church, then what are we talking? 2 rental properties that are dictating what happens? That, is it really what happens after this that closes the road down, that we're saying one way from here down because of these 2 properties, which have off-street parking? Again, I don't understand why we're willing to make a one-way street either time zone or just permanent for a couple rental properties, which right now has broken windows and we're concerned about that.
I've seen the congested area at all different times of day. Even the post office truck that parks there right on the corner of Chestnut and West. It's crazy because that's like so narrow, so they park there and there's like, this gentleman saying like 2 rental units where, you know, they probably do. That's always an area where you have to give a courteous pause, let the other car go. But it's just kind of, for me, a neighborhood thing. You see a car coming, there's cars parked for the church or the food pantry, and you just wait your turn and you let them, you know, you let them pass. That's just my thought.
Pete Lowe was 17 Chestnut Street. It seems like the consensus is that no one wants the one way. I don't envy you having to make a decision on how to resolve this, and it seems like, as I mentioned before, the root of the problem is Main Street. There is no answer. I can't offer any solutions. There's not going to be any solution, and whatever you do is going to be a Band-Aid, and it seems like it's going to continue to get worse. So I guess I'm asking, looking long-term. When we first moved here over 30 years ago, there was talk of a Franklin and Laconian bypass to alleviate this traffic. And that went away, and I didn't know if there was any more talk of that, if the state looked at that. I mean, how do we go about finding out how, you know, to make that happen?
That probably costs $100 million. I don't think the state's going to spend that kind of money.
That's a done deal. That's gone, that won't be resurrected.
Ever?
No, that died. That died. One of the problems is their route. They just didn't have a route that would work. It bought up. It would have made Lockmere a village under the overpass. Those types of things. The Route 3 corridor itself is a very valuable corridor, especially to the town of Tilton.
it would have decimated it. I mean, there would have been no value there. So it's gone. It's
Also tough on merchants in town.
Exactly, it's gone.
Good. Yeah, you, that's all.
I'm Ruthie Nelson. I live at 54 Chestnut Street most of my life now. I'm also a teacher in high school, and I'm hearing lots of complaints and concerns about the kids coming up Cedar Street. And I think perhaps we need to go back to the high school, and we need to speak to them because it is posted at the high school that the kids, nobody can go out the back way, as they call it, to Dearborn Road, I think it is, that goes up Deer Street.
Deer Street, yeah.
I'm sorry, and get onto Cedar Street. The kids aren't even supposed to exit the building or the high school parking area from that street. So if somehow we could enforce it better, so they couldn't get out onto Deer Street and go down Winter Street and come up Cedar Street. I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know that teachers are comfortable stepping in front of the cars to try and stop the kids out there. And they're the ones that have to watch the parking lot in the afternoon. But I really think that that it's been a concern for a number of years, and it is posted that you cannot go that way between 7:30 or 7 and 7:30 in the morning, and then 2:30 to 3 in the afternoon. So maybe if we could just stop that traffic, it would slow stuff down over this way.
Well, how about you just put a couple cell verses at the end of that road during that time?
The buses come in that way and pick the kids up.
And then take them down later.
Right, the buses, you'd have the buses come down. Nate?
I've thought about this, and I was going to bring this up, but the school can control the student population with motor vehicles. And one of the ideas that I had come up with, because most of the students that are driving, they're going this way and they're going down to Park Street, going into Northfield, because most of them live in Northfield. So if the school is going to issue parking passes for these students, the condition is, if you live in Northfield, when you exit the school, you go west on Route 3, down to Cross Mill Road, you go across Mill Road to Hodge Street. And that way. And that would alleviate, not all of it, but a lot of the student driving through there. It's not going to alleviate the overflow from the afternoon traffic, but that is one way. And the school does have the authority to do that. We have a school resource officer down there who, if we needed to, we could have him direct, go down, he's going to know all the students. They can either put a sticker on their windshield with an N, I live in Northfield, he routes them that way. Kids living in Tilton, Samerton, go this way.
I like it, but they'll find a way around
Yeah.
it.
And they have to go to work, but it'd be good if, because their traffic, they're trying to go the fastest route, just like the other 3 o'clock. It'd be good if they let them out like maybe 15 minutes early.
Okay. Let's turn around back over here, okay? Scott?
Pat, I know it was addressed, Nate addressed it, but, you know, it seems like there's no common sense that enters into the fact that they cannot take a right onto, because of the railroad tracks. That's only used very, very infrequently. I mean, what is it, 5 to 7 times a year that they actually go out of there with an engine, and they always have crossing guards in front of them when they do with flags. Where's the common sense enter in with the state to say, you know what, we have an issue here, a traffic issue, okay? We understand that because it's not an active railroad crossing that they can't have a turn on the right, but that train does not operate like a regular train. A regular train does not have people at every intersection with flags, and they just barely motor through. I mean, a regular train intersection, they're going, they could be going 60, 70 miles an hour when they go through an intersection, freight train. But because of the very limited amount of time that goes out, it seems like that's part of the crux of the problem, because if we had that traffic, as he's talking about, bleeding to the right, even the people who work in Franklin, the people that are heading to the interstate, there's a lot of them go down Park Street, get on the interstate, head south, whether they're going to work or whatever. I think we don't have that many parking spots there anyway. And if you put that lane in, I don't know why we don't have a common sense discussion with the state. Maybe it's lacking common sense.
Go ahead.
I know, it's sad.
I did bring this up at one of the hearings I went 2 years ago, and I brought this up.
Yeah.
Laconia has 2 of those arms sitting up on North Main Street, right next to them. They haven't used them in 30 years. It's out of the high school. I brought that up to the railroad engineer. I said, well, how much would it cost the state to relocate that from up there down here so that we could have a turn lane? I never went there. So.
Catherine wanted to say something.
He was asking, so I was telling her. That intersection, I had this conversation with the district engineer before he retired a few years ago. In fact, we were standing at the intersection. And that was never designed as a right turn lane. So a tractor trailer truck coming down through there, headed east, would be in the through lane to make that corner. And they do it already now. And so anybody trying to make the right, so the state, and this is the engineer telling me, will not recognize that as a right turn lane. When they rebuilt that intersection was the time they should have redesigned it. But because of the bridge, because of the railroad track, they chose not to because of the expense of what they would have had to have done, especially with the 2 bridges, because you've got a railroad bridge there as well. In order to make that a right turn lane, they actually would have to move it over towards Prospect Street to gain the width, so it was just too problematic.
I did that for Liberty for 16 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, go
I
ahead.
was just, to your point though, I see trucks making a left-hand turn around the grocery store there to actually make the right turn. So I mean, you could put a posted sign for trucks only, you make left to make it right, everybody else can make it right. I mean, there's common sense approaches to these things.
Or they could just shut the bridge on, because tractor trailer traffic.
And route it all.
You can't do that.
So, way up in the back in the red.
Bob Laraway, Chestnut Street also. I kind of agree with this common sense that all the traffic's being backed up. What are we losing if we have the intersection with a right turn lane? Are you saying the state won't do it or we can't do it?
No, the state won't do it. The state can, and we
The
can't.
state owns it.
State owns it and we can't do anything about it. But
Maybe after the election, you seem to be supporting Forrester. Maybe if she becomes governor, we'll have a little more pull. Well, sometimes that's what it's going to take, Pat.
she says she's only a phone call away.
Yeah.
With the state.
I had a question on the right-hand turn lane. You said the state won't make it a right turn lane because they have to put an arm block there for the rail. Is that the only reason? If an arm went there, would they allow right-hand turn?
No, there's not enough radius for trucks to turn. They won't make the right-hand turn. Trucks cannot make
So it's
that
not
radius.
just the arm that's
No, it's not just the arm. Go ahead.
I was with Catherine that day too, and they said that we were 2 feet too short, was part 2 of that. He said you had to add 2 feet wider, because, yeah, we met them specifically about this issue there. So we had a couple things against us that day.
But we've removed the parking that was in front of the buildings across the street, though, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Because we used to have parking over there years ago, and now it's gone. So didn't that give us additional width in the roadway there to be able to readjust the road overpass?
No. No, because there's a sidewalk there.
But how wide does the sidewalk have to be?
Can I just explain something here? Please?
Wait, 1 second, I have to answer this question. You're talking about where the
front
store
of the
is
store.
and Jeff, that's private. That's where private property begins, and we can't go with the private property, you can't change that.
Out in front you're talking about?
Right, out in front.
So those parking spots were actually in private property?
Some of the ones that were taken away are private property, yes. They were told they couldn't because of the
Sidewalk. You can't cross the sidewalk to park your car in a parking space. You can cross the sidewalk to go into your driveway. We have a chief here that can tell us why, but you cannot have parking spaces on the other side of a sidewalk. And the other side of the sidewalk was private property, so they were private spaces. The reason they're gone is because of that law, not because the town
Right.
decided not to have municipal parking there.
Right.
If the town was to acquire the private land in front of that, could you readjust the road over to give us the width? Has that ever been thought of?
They don't want it.
No, you would have to buy a lot more than just the land in front of that store. You'd have to, I mean, for the state, it's a huge length. I mean, this is what was described in the chief and us by Mark. So, I mean, and you'd have to have a state engineer to really answer a lot of these questions, but from what Mark Morrell described to us, it was, you know, gonna take millions of dollars to readjust that intersection to have that right turn lane.
William, go ahead.
May I?
This lady right here.
Teresa, hello, 17 Chestnut Street. We have no parking in the wintertime. Why not make sure no parking all the time? Where do they park?
Again, it's like what Pat said before about, how about when you have company over for a Sunday dinner or for a holiday barbecue? Where are they gonna park? If you say, well, they can't park in the street, where are they gonna park?
They park at the church parking lot.
Exactly.
Amen for that.
Yeah, you just invited us all.
No, but we're not
Sign says you can use
kidding.
it, but we're not using
You
it.
can't walk all the way up on the west.
No.
You can use it, we're not using it. Oh, yeah.
May I offer a suggestion of consulting with a traffic engineer? I think it's great to hear everyone's opinions, but if we painted this project with suggestions, there would be 80 different colors out there. So, you know, I listened to the conversation for the last 30 minutes, and it really points back to, we have to check with the engineer. We're not sure on that. We could put stop signs at every corner, we could put horses up, we could put barricades, we could hire 20 more police officers and put them at every intersection. You know, it just, most of it equates to money. So before we spend any, you know, frivolous money, if I may offer that suggestion of a traffic engineer, they may have more answers than what we can offer. So,
Traffic engineers aren't
somewhat of a
cheap.
joke, but
Yeah. They're not cheap.
well, that's when we fire them.
Go ahead.
Would the traffic engineers take what our input has been?
They would probably take in the neighborhood and probably take in a little bit of the neighborhood history, but as far as personal history, they look at
Well,
the,
no, I'm not
the
asking
area.
for personal,
They,
but
you know, that you've lived there for 30 years, no, they wouldn't take into consideration, but they would take into consideration what's in
They have design
the street.
standards.
Right. Go ahead, Kevin.
I think further public forums, we should engage our state senator, representative, and our House reps to also be present. Because if this does in fact turn to be a state issue, whether it's intersection problems or lights, or this is really, it's overload for Route 3 traffic. But if we can engage them in the discussion, we can ask for their support if it does need to go to the state level. So this is not going to be answered overnight. So if we can engage them in this, that would be a huge benefit.
The next time we have a public forum, we'll be glad to invite the state senators, whomever you want, but you're in charge of getting our House representatives here, because we've invited them and they've not shown up, so.
Who are they?
You want to do it right before the
Brian
election?
Gallagher and Dennis Fields.
Yes, right before the election, and they'll show up.
Yeah, well, he's running for senator now, he'll show up. Go ahead.
I'm not a resident of either of these streets. I live in Northfield at the end of Cross Mill Road. And let me tell you that Cross Mill is not a local road anymore, it's a highway. Basically, you got a bottleneck down here that's impacting all over the place. If you shoot about 16, as he's suggesting, where would he go? 16 more to that yield sign up there, you're looking for trouble in Northfield. So
We don't care about
well,
that.
It's the old NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard.
Stay out of your backyard.
Man, here, you can deal with it.
You're gonna pay for that with Joyce now. Go ahead.
I think like Kevin's saying, if that intersection downtown Tilton where there was no side streets to it for 2 miles, the traffic wouldn't have anything other than they have to go through it. And then the state would have to address the issue because the people would be back into Franklin's.
So if we put up no through traffic on, from this hour to this hour on all these side streets going along.
No, you can't do that. But I'm just saying, if you were looking at the situation that there was no side streets, then you would have, the problem would exist because of the light.
Right.
And because of the light, it's creating some of the other problems that we're experiencing.
Yeah, very, go ahead.
Again, it sounds like Main Street's the issue, which to me now becomes a state issue. Is there a way for us to petition the state, to all of us start calling our state reps, to make it a state issue? Tell them that we have a problem here until it's not going to go away. We can't fix it until the state fixes it somehow. I mean, there's got to be some way to bring this to the state's attention, to take some action. If you have enough voices, somebody's got to listen.
Catherine's going to answer this one.
That's one of the things that our TAC member could do. Our Public Works Director is our TAC member. He can bring that project to them and have it put on the list, and they can even expedite it and bring it up on the list if we can show that there's an emergent need, that, you know, especially if there's any accidents in the intersection and that kind of thing. It's one way to do it. So there's a number of ways we can do this. That's one definitely, but the other is to get our reps here.
I think you'd get enough support from the town if we needed to go down to the legislature or something.
Scott's idea was very interesting.
You know, there is a point in time where it's going to have to be addressed because that stone wall is not going to hold forever because every year the sinkholes are getting bigger and the sidewalk is falling into the earth behind there. And the wall is starting to tilt like this. So we need to be timely. When that gets replaced, is a good time to go with our right-hand turn.
Right. Go ahead, Kim.
I guess an immediate solution may be to turn this a little bit more positive reinforcement for the travelers that go through there. Instead of writing tickets, would it be crazy to think that you could positively reinforce it with $10 gas cards for the people who are doing the speed limit? Well, actually, the chief can answer this, whether, because the Veterans Home has a ton of traffic that goes through there. If you give one high school student a $10 gas card, I guarantee the next day, you're gonna see about 5 kids doing the speed limit. And same thing with the Veterans Home. I'm talking about an immediate and temporary solution only.
You want your taxes go up 10% afterwards, I know that. It's come to cost.
If you do one gas card for $10 and have 10 kids.
There's $100 right there.
No, one for $10.
Yeah.
That's $10.
Yeah, sorry, I don't.
And
Yeah.
I think Malone mentioned that we did purchase some signs. There was a lot of signs that are missing throughout the district in there, and street signs, stop signs. Johnny surveyed it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many signs you can?
Oh, I don't remember exactly.
I know West Street doesn't have any street sign on either end. It doesn't have any stop sign on the bottom of the hill.
There's stop signs, street signs,
Count of around
speed signs, all
85 or
been
something like that. And
Yeah.
there were like 55 that are definite that we have to get posted.
right.
Yeah, and those signs actually, you got a call this evening, they're actually finally printed, I gotta go pick them up tomorrow.
So those are all going to be replaced.
Yeah, we did get signs, so.
Yes.
That
From
should help.
That might help
Cleveland
some.
Street all through this area
Stop sign.
alone, that was just this area.
Kids.
Go ahead, Liz.
Also on a positive, maybe a little more positive, Father Ray's suggestion that if the church parking lot isn't being used for church services, et cetera, and it's open during the day and there are designated parking areas for the cars and stuff all year long, couldn't we consider putting up no parking overnight, no more parking than like a half hour to dump your groceries, et cetera, and then we could free up the streets until other things could be considered, like the engineer and so on, just for the summer months or whatever.
As long as it's during the daytime hours.
Yes.
I think overnight, we don't want to be overnight.
But
Would
Yeah.
would
they
you
put them
want,
up in the winter, you can't park on the side of the street.
would you
Come
want
during the day when you're plowing your driveways, when you're plowing your parking areas, et cetera. People park on the side of the street, put their blinkers on, et cetera. I don't see any reason why people wouldn't be understanding if you're unloading groceries, et cetera. But if you have a parking area that's designated, maybe you should leave your car there overnight. It's just a suggestion.
Thank you, that's a good suggestion.
Hi, Derek Floyd, I work for the church. I don't think you have to, doing a one-way street, it's just gonna create a problem somewhere else down the line, or back on the main street, no matter what you try to do, except for getting somebody from the state to do a study and see what can be done officially. And as far as the usage of the parking lot, that's fine, but during a snowstorm, that can't happen. I'm sorry, because we have two places to take care of, and when we arrive here to clean snow, there can't be any cars here. Because if they do, we have to get it cleared, because we have to be in another building to maintain that also.
That's fair enough.
But that's, that's just something if that can be lived with, we really don't have much problem with anything else.
The folks that live on Cedar and High, since there's been added patrols this past fall, winter, do you find that there's a difference in the speed and travel?
No. The rush hour is the only time that I see.
It
Get a
varies.
no down here.
It varies. I live on the corner of Pine and Chestnut, as I indicated before, and basically coming down off on High Street, that's an accident area waiting to be had. It really is. Because as you're coming down into the gully over the bridge and then up to the stop sign, most people are going to go beyond the stop sign because you have the bushes. And it's the same way coming the other way too. You can't see one way or another. There's.
You gotta stick your nose out pretty good.
Yeah, you do. And lots of times, I don't want to blame it on the kids because it's not all the kids. But it's around that time.
They cut a lot of those bushes down the other day, did you see that? But they left that one that sits there that blinds you from
Yes, I did
anything
notice
coming
that.
down the
But
street.
they need to do something on the other side too, and I know that's private property.
Right.
But when you have people parking their cars there, you can't see, you have to go out halfway into the cross in order to see if there's any oncoming
Yeah,
traffic.
I do.
And that's pretty bad.
Mr. Cole?
One other thing, I used to work for this company. It was on an industrial drive, so there was many different businesses, and everybody used to get out at the same time. So what they did to alleviate the traffic problem was one company started 15 minutes earlier, but they got out 15 minutes. And they staggered that. They staggered that for a whole hour for all those places that were there, and it just got rid of the traffic bundle, because everybody used to come out on the 101 and 1. And it cleared it up. It gave the lights a chance for people to actually travel, get through them. The next people that were coming out of work, these people were already gone. And I'm not talking about, 20 cars or something. I'm talking about places that had, there was one place that had 300 employees per shift. And it worked very well. So that might be something you guys could work with the school system.
Work with the
and
corporations.
Cooperation. And the other thing too is, no offense, but the buses where they have their yard, that's a bottleneck. I have been here and to go back into Franklin in the wrong time of day, and it's taken me half an hour. Oh, yeah, because all the truck buses are turning.
Does anybody have anything new to add or questions for the selectmen while you all have us as up here? Go ahead.
You spoke about having our reps here. Do we need to include DOT?
Well, we could invite them, that would be great.
Right.
Sure.
The other question is, it was mentioned, stopping the trucks from making the right onto Park Street and having them use exit 20. How does that work? Who makes that happen?
State of New Hampshire.
State of New Hampshire.
DOT.
Yep.
So if the trucks had to use exit 20, could the cars, pickups, make the right turn?
That's a good question.
But there's
That's a good question
businesses
to
over there
DOT.
too that aren't going to go onto the exit. They need to go down Park Street in order to get down.
They'll go through trucks.
Yes.
So they're not
Well,
going
they can
through.
use the Bridge
They
Street.
could go down Northfield, around that way. Park Gable, they got a new bridge there.
Park Street is a state-owned road as well. That's a state-owned road.
Where are you getting so much traffic in Tilton? I mean, coming from Franklin, where it backs up so much?
When we did a traffic study 2 years ago, we had the trailer out in front of Town Hall. We did east and west, and there was over 50,000 cars traveling Main Street during the hours between 9 and 5.
Especially in the summertime, okay?
No, it increased in the summer.
Yeah. You have a lot of tourists coming through. You have people that, believe it or not, a lot of people live in Franklin, work in Laconia. People live in Laconia that work in Franklin. So you're going back and forth.
So add to that the seasonal, and then the evening when people are out of work. So it was an eye-opener.
Where does it primarily come from, the traffic at 5 o'clock, straight through that hour, coming into Tilton?
Off the highways.
Is it everything
Right.
coming in at once, or is it factories getting out?
The
Are you
factories
talking eastbound
usually
or
get, in Franklin, the factories usually, correct me if I'm wrong, 3:30, 4. They've staggered their hours, and PCC, lots, they've staggered their hours among themselves to get out different times.
Still gets backed up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have their own car.
Yep.
Right.
Also, the problem is that roads that were built for traffic 100 years ago, the traffic is probably 200% of what it was 100 years ago.
And they're repairing the drains downtown on Main Street, if you haven't noticed already.
Yeah.
They're almost finished, and then they'll be paving in July, so that's coming.
You only have a narrow pass, and then you narrow it down a little more for the truck to take more forward.
Any more questions for us? Thank you. On behalf of the board, we thank you for coming out and letting us